The waves crashed against the shore in Maui as I sipped my morning coffee from the balcony of our resort suite. Paradise. 3 days into my honeymoon, and I finally felt the work stress melting away. The ocean breeze carried the scent of plumeria flowers. My phone buzzed on the glass table. Clark's name flashed on the screen. Maddie, his voice was ice cold, cutting through the tropical morning like a knife. You abandoned your post. You're terminated, effective immediately. My coffee cup slipped from my hands, shattering on the wooden deck below. Hot liquid splashed across my legs. What, Clark? You approved my leave a week ago. We went over everything in detail. I don't care what you think I approved. You left us high and dry during a critical period. Clean out your desk when you get back. The line went dead. I stared at my phone in complete shock, my hands trembling. My husband Jake rushed over from inside, seeing my face go stark white. What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My dream job? Gone. Just like that. 5 years of dedication, erased in 30 seconds. Then my phone chimed. A calendar notification popped up. Approved leave, Maddie, wedding week. Dated exactly 1 week ago, with Clark's electronic signature. 1 week earlier, I sat across from Clark in his glass office overlooking downtown Seattle. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows as I handed him my final project reports, organized in color-coded folders. Everything's ready for my leave, I said, sliding the thick folder across his mahogany desk. The Johnson account is completely wrapped up, and I've thoroughly briefed the entire team on the Miller project timeline. Clark flipped through the pages methodically, nodding with apparent approval. Excellent work, as always. Incredibly detailed. He pulled out his expensive fountain pen and signed my leave request with an elaborate flourish. Enjoy your wedding, Maddie. You've definitely earned this break. His smile seemed genuine, warm even. He even stood up and shook my hand firmly. When you get back refreshed, we'll discuss that promotion we talked about last month. I left his office floating on air, practically glowing with satisfaction. Everything was absolutely perfect. My wedding was in 3 days, followed by a blissful week in Hawaii. My career trajectory was exactly where I wanted it. Looking back now, that smile felt different. Calculated, predatory, like he was already planning something sinister. I cut my honeymoon short and flew back to Seattle on the first available flight. My hands shook violently as I walked into the familiar office building, the marble lobby that once felt welcoming now seeming cold and hostile. The security guard Dave, who usually greeted me with a warm smile, avoided eye contact when I badged in. My desk was empty, completely cleared out. Even my lucky coffee mug and the small succulent plant were gone. "Excuse me, miss?" A security guard I didn't recognize appeared beside me, his voice apologetic but firm. "I need to escort you out of the building." "This is my desk," I stammered, gesturing helplessly at the bare workspace. "I work here. I've worked here for 5 years." He looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Not anymore, ma'am. Please come with me." I walked past my coworkers' shocked faces, like I was in a nightmare. Some looked guilty, averting their eyes quickly. Others pretended to be intensely busy with their keyboards. Clark's office door was closed, blinds drawn tight. In the lobby, they handed me a small cardboard box with my personal items hastily thrown inside. My badge was cut in half and thrown in the trash bin. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, crying uncontrollably. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Through the office windows, I could see someone sitting at my desk. A blonde woman I'd never seen before. That evening, I called Jen from finance, pacing anxiously around my living room. She was the only person I trusted completely at the company, someone who'd become a genuine friend over the years. "Maddie, I'm so sorry." Her voice was barely a whisper, filled with guilt and fear. "I can't talk long, but you absolutely need to know something important." My heart raced, pounding against my ribs. "What is it? Please tell me." "Clark's been planning this for weeks, maybe even months. He already had your replacement lined up before you even left for your wedding. This whole termination was completely premeditated." The room started spinning around me. I gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean exactly?" "He told HR you were too assertive and difficult to manage. He said he needed someone more flexible and compliant in the role. The honeymoon was just his convenient excuse to pull the trigger." I felt sick to my stomach. Jen, I have documented proof he approved my leave. I know, and that's what makes this so calculated. But Maddie, he's done this before to other people. 3 other employees in the past 2 years. They all filed formal complaints. Nothing happened. The company always protects management over employees. Before hanging up, she added quietly, her voice trembling, "But you're different. You actually have evidence. Real, concrete evidence." I spent the next day methodically combing through every email, every calendar entry, every Slack message in my personal archives. My laptop screen glowed late into the night as I organized everything chronologically. The paper trail was absolutely damning. My approved leave request, dated and digitally signed by Clark himself. A Slack message from Clark sent the day before my wedding. "Enjoy your special day, Maddie. We've got everything covered here. Don't worry about work." Email chains showing my projects were completed ahead of schedule with glowing feedback from clients. Performance reviews from the past year calling me exceptional, irreplaceable, and a valuable team leader. But the most shocking discovery was a calendar entry buried in Clark's exported schedule from 2 weeks ago. Interview, project coordinator replacement, confidential. 2 weeks ago, he was actively interviewing my replacement before he even approved my wedding leave. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. I printed everything methodically, screenshots with timestamps, email headers showing metadata, calendar exports. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. But I knew Jen was absolutely right. This company had a documented history of protecting bad managers and silencing brave employees. I needed a completely different strategy, a much smarter approach that they wouldn't see coming. This couldn't just be about getting my old job back anymore. This was bigger than that now. The law office was smaller than I expected, tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore. James Patterson, employment attorney, was quiet and methodical, wearing wire-rimmed glasses that made him look scholarly. He read through my documentation without any expression, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "This is textbook retaliation," he said finally, setting down his pen and looking directly at me. "But if we're going to do this right, we need to be strategic." I leaned forward eagerly. "What exactly does that mean?" "Don't sue yet. Don't make any noise publicly. Let Clark think he's completely safe while we methodically build an absolutely airtight case. Apply for new jobs. Live your life normally, but document everything that happens next." He tapped my thick folder with his finger. "This could be much bigger than simple wrongful termination. If he's done this to other employees, we might be looking at a systematic pattern of discrimination. That opens up entirely different legal avenues." I felt a genuine spark of hope for the first time. "So what's my immediate next move?" "Patience. And keep collecting evidence relentlessly. Companies like yours absolutely hate public scrutiny. When we're finally ready, we'll have maximum leverage." James smiled for the first time during our meeting. "Trust the process, Maddie. Bad bosses usually dig their own graves if you give them enough rope." That night, I remembered something crucial while reviewing my employment paperwork by lamplight. In my eager rush to start the job 5 years ago, I never signed a non-disclosure agreement. Most employees signed them during standard onboarding, but HR had somehow missed mine in the pile of paperwork. I was completely free to talk about my experience, publicly if I wanted to. No legal restrictions whatsoever. I started drafting a detailed timeline of events on my laptop. Every conversation, every meeting, every piece of evidence. My lawyer encouraged me to keep digging relentlessly, but warned me to stay completely quiet publicly for now. "We want them to severely underestimate you," he explained during our follow-up call. "Let them think you're just another disgruntled employee who'll fade away quietly." Then Jen sent me a text message that made my blood absolutely boil. "Emergency update. They're systematically rewriting your project reports, removing your name completely and giving full credit to others. I managed to save copies before they could finish the cover-up." They weren't just firing me unjustly. They were actively trying to erase me completely. Delete any trace that I'd ever contributed anything valuable or meaningful to the company. But they'd made one absolutely critical mistake. They'd severely underestimated me and my determination. I discovered something that changed everything while carefully probing my old access points. My admin access to the internal calendar system was still mysteriously active. IT had completely forgotten to disable it during my hasty termination. I logged in carefully from my home computer, taking methodical screenshots of everything I could access. Executive schedules, board meetings, internal memos with my name mentioned. The digital breadcrumbs were everywhere. Then I found the smoking gun. A meeting from 3 weeks ago labeled Transition Plan, Post Maddie, Urgent. The attendees were Clark, HR Director Patricia Mills, and the VP of Operations, Robert Hart. The meeting was scheduled for 1 full hour, the day immediately after I'd submitted my wedding leave request. My hands trembled violently as I downloaded the calendar entry with all its metadata. This was irrefutable proof of premeditation. They'd planned my systematic termination the exact moment I asked for leave. I dug deeper into the system, like a detective. Found expense reports for recruitment fees dated 2 weeks before my wedding. Email threads about reorganizing the project team from last month with cryptic references. Every single piece of evidence painted the same damning picture. This was a calculated, methodical attack, not a business decision. I saved everything to multiple external drives and cloud accounts. They'd cut off my access soon enough once they realized their mistake. Through LinkedIn, I found my replacement after some careful detective work. Amber Chen, recent college graduate with minimal real-world experience but an impressive academic record. I created a believable fake profile and reached out, claiming to be a former employee offering industry advice and mentorship. She agreed to meet for coffee at a popular downtown cafe, thinking I was just a friendly contact trying to help. I feel absolutely terrible, she confessed over our lattes, her voice filled with genuine guilt. They told me the previous person resigned suddenly due to personal reasons, but something feels really off about the whole situation. I kept my expression completely neutral, fighting every instinct to reveal myself. What do you mean exactly? The manager, Clark, keeps saying extremely negative things about her, calls her unstable and difficult to work with. He warned me multiple times that she might try to contact me or cause trouble for the company. My stomach clenched with anger and humiliation. 'Cause trouble how? He said she was fired for abandoning her job during a critical period and would probably try to retaliate somehow. But honestly, her work is absolutely incredible. I'm struggling to maintain the relationships she built with clients, and they all genuinely loved her. Amber looked increasingly guilty. Between you and me, I think they completely lied about why she left. And Clark promised me her full salary plus performance bonuses to take the job quickly without asking questions. The puzzle pieces clicked together perfectly. They'd manipulated her too. James connected me with 2 former employees who'd been systematically forced out by Clark over the past few years. Sarah and Marcus agreed to meet at a quiet cafe downtown, their faces already showing the emotional scars. He completely destroyed my confidence, Sarah said, stirring her tea nervously with shaking hands. Made me doubt every single decision I made. Filed multiple HR complaints about his aggressive behavior, but they sided with him every single time. Marcus nodded grimly, his jaw clenched with residual anger. Same exact pattern here. I had detailed documentation of his verbal abuse and intimidation tactics, but HR dismissed it as management-style differences. I eventually quit just to save my sanity. Sarah pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. I recorded one of our final meetings without his knowledge. Want to hear how he really talks about employees behind closed doors? She hit play. Clark's voice filled our corner of the cafe. Maddie thinks she's completely irreplaceable, but honestly, she's been getting way too big for her britches lately. Time to remind her exactly who's in charge here. My face burned with anger and deep humiliation. The casual cruelty in his voice was shocking. This was recorded the day immediately after you left for your honeymoon, Sarah said quietly, her eyes filled with sympathy. He was already celebrating getting rid of you like it was some kind of victory. I thanked them both and left, my resolve stronger than ever. Clark thought he was completely untouchable. Time to prove him catastrophically wrong. James's strategy was completely counterintuitive but absolutely brilliant. Instead of fighting desperately for my old job back, I should build something significantly better. Show that Clark's decision was his devastating loss, not mine. You'll win by moving forward strategically, he explained during our strategy session. That's what workplace bullies don't expect. They want you to grovel and beg pathetically. Instead, you're going to thrive spectacularly. I started job hunting immediately with renewed confidence. My portfolio was exceptionally strong and word spread quickly through professional networks that I was available. Within just 1 week, I had 3 promising interviews lined up. The most promising opportunity was at Innovative Solutions, a rapidly growing company that competed directly with my old employer in several key markets. The hiring manager, Linda Maxwell, had worked with Clark years ago. I've heard disturbing stories about that place, she said during our initial phone screening. Toxic management culture, extremely high turnover rates. If you're even half as good as your glowing references say, you'd be absolutely perfect for our team. The interview went better than I could have possibly imagined. They desperately needed someone with my exact skill set to lead a major new client project. When can you realistically start? Linda asked with a genuine smile. I felt a surge of excitement. How about immediately? Innovative Solutions offered me a position as Senior Project Manager, 2 full levels above my old job, with an impressive 30% salary increase. I accepted immediately, practically glowing, with my first week was absolutely amazing. Respectful colleagues who valued input, transparent communication at every level, and a boss who actually listened to my ideas. Linda had worked at several prestigious companies and knew the industry inside and out. Your old boss, Clark, she mentioned casually during lunch at a trendy downtown bistro. I've dealt with him at various conferences over the years. Never trusted him personally. Too slick, too eager to take full credit for other people's hard work. I smiled diplomatically, not revealing my painful personal history yet. The timing wasn't right. The best part? Linda handed me a conference registration for the upcoming Pacific Northwest Business Summit. You'll represent our entire client management team. Excellent networking opportunity for someone with your background. I nearly choked on my sandwich when I saw the keynote speaker list posted online. Clark Davidson was giving a major presentation titled Empowering Women in the Workplace, a Leadership Perspective. The delicious irony was almost too much to handle. This was going to be incredibly interesting. I could hardly wait. The conference was held at the luxurious downtown Marriott. I wore my best professional outfit and entered with complete confidence. My new company's name badge feeling like protective armor against whatever might come. Clark took the stage for his keynote, looking polished and self-assured in his expensive suit. His presentation was absolutely full of buzzwords about supporting female talent and creating genuinely inclusive environments. I sat strategically in the back, watching him lie brazenly to an audience of 300 business leaders. Linda sat beside me, occasionally rolling her eyes at his empty rhetoric and hollow promises. After his speech, there was a networking reception in the grand ballroom. I watched Clark work the room skillfully, schmoozing with potential clients and eager investors. He was completely in his element, feeding off the attention. Then, our eyes met directly across the crowded ballroom. His face went absolutely pale, like he'd seen a ghost. He clearly hadn't expected to see me here, looking successful, confident, and completely unbothered. I walked over purposefully to introduce myself to one of his biggest clients, a woman I'd worked closely with in my previous role. Janet? So wonderful to see you again. She lit up immediately. Maddie, I had absolutely no idea you'd moved to Innovative Solutions. We should definitely talk about potential partnerships soon. Clark appeared beside us, clearly panicked and sweating. Too late to stop this conversation. Within just 1 month, 3 former clients from my old company reached out directly to Innovative Solutions. Word was spreading rapidly through industry circles that I was delivering significantly better results with much faster turnaround times. Your professional reputation precedes you, one client told me during a video call, smiling broadly. We've heard absolutely amazing things about your new team's efficiency and attention to detail. My old coworkers started connecting with me enthusiastically on LinkedIn, congratulating me on the strategic move. Some sent private messages hinting they were seriously interested in jumping ship too. Jen texted me regularly with insider updates from the company. Clark is getting increasingly paranoid. Keeps asking different people who you're talking to and what you're saying about him behind his back. The irony wasn't lost on me at all. He'd fired me specifically to eliminate a perceived threat, but now I was actually competing against him directly from the outside. His paranoia was rapidly becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Linda was absolutely thrilled with my performance during quarterly reviews. "Best hire we've made in years," she told the leadership team enthusiastically during my first performance evaluation. I was building something real, something genuinely valuable, and Clark could see it slipping away from him, one client at a time. 6 months after my termination, I received an unexpected email from Amber. The subject line read, "I can't stay silent anymore." She'd attached several documents: HR correspondence, internal emails, and recorded conversations. The smoking gun was an email thread between Clark and HR from the week I was fired. Clark had written, "Maddie's leave request is perfect timing. I've been looking for a reason to restructure her position. Let's use this as our opportunity." HR had responded, "Are you sure? Her performance reviews are stellar." Clark's reply, "Performance isn't the issue, attitude is. She questions my decisions too much. I need someone more compliant." Amber's note was simple. "This is wrong. You deserve better. I'm quitting today." I forwarded everything to James immediately. He called me within an hour. "This is it, Maddie. This proves discrimination, retaliation, and falsification of termination records. Are you ready to file?" I looked at my thriving new career, my supportive new team, my growing client relationships. "Yes," I said. "It's time." The legal notice hit my former company like a devastating meteor impact. James filed a comprehensive wrongful termination suit citing retaliation, systematic discrimination, and emotional distress with punitive damages. Within just hours, Clark was placed on immediate administrative leave, pending a full investigation. Patricia Mills from HR called me personally, her voice noticeably shaking with nervousness. "Maddie, we urgently need to discuss this serious situation. Can you come in for a meeting as soon as possible?" I almost laughed out loud at the irony. After 6 months of complete silence, now you suddenly want to talk? Please, we're prepared to offer a reasonable resolution. This doesn't need to become a destructive public battle that hurts everyone involved. James advised me to hear them out, but with strict, non-negotiable conditions. The meeting would be professionally recorded, legal counsel present, and absolutely no pressure tactics allowed. "They're genuinely scared," he explained with satisfaction. "Companies absolutely hate employment lawsuits because they're public record. Bad publicity, potential investor concerns, regulatory scrutiny from labor boards." We scheduled the meeting for the following week. I'd be walking back into that intimidating building, but this time with all the power firmly in my hands. The tables had completely turned. The conference room was packed with nervous executives. CEO Michael Chen, Board Chair Helen Rodriguez, Patricia Mills, and 3 expensive lawyers I didn't recognize. They looked exactly like a funeral party preparing for bad news. I sat calmly while James presented our comprehensive case methodically. Documents, recordings, witness statements, expert testimony on employment law violations. The evidence was absolutely overwhelming and undeniable. When he finished his presentation, the room was completely silent. Helen Rodriguez, the intimidating board chair, spoke first with visible concern. "Ms. Davidson, this documentation is deeply concerning. We had absolutely no idea of the scope of Mr. Clark's inappropriate actions." I leaned forward confidently. "This isn't about money or revenge. This is about accountability and justice. Clark has created a systematically toxic environment that drives away good employees and exposes your company to serious legal liability." The CEO looked genuinely sick to his stomach. "What are you specifically seeking?" "Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, comprehensive policy changes to prevent this from happening again to anyone else, and Clark's immediate termination with cause on his permanent record." They exchanged worried glances around the table. "We'll need significant time to consider these terms carefully." "You have exactly 48 hours, James said coolly. "After that, we file in federal court and it becomes public record immediately." They came back with a substantial settlement offer. $200,000, confidential agreement with strict non-disclosure terms, and Clark's quiet resignation without admitting fault. James recommended I seriously consider it. It's a substantial amount, and you've already built a significantly better career elsewhere. This could be over tomorrow. But something didn't feel right in my gut. What happens to the next woman Clark manipulates? What about the women still working under toxic managers exactly like him? I declined their generous offer without hesitation. Instead, I made a counterproposal. Public apology, comprehensive policy overhaul, Clark's termination for cause, and my direct involvement in rebuilding their workplace culture. You're taking a significant risk, James warned me seriously. They could fight this aggressively and drag it out for years. Legal costs could mount quickly. Some things are worth the risk, I replied with determination. Jen texted me that evening with an update. Clark is absolutely freaking out. He's trying to blame everyone else, me, Amber, even you, for manipulating the situation somehow. His desperation was showing clearly. Good. Let him panic. The pressure was building exactly where it needed to be. Clark's defense strategy was completely predictable and absolutely pathetic. He blamed HR for mishandling my termination paperwork. He claimed Amber had misunderstood his comments and taken them out of context. He even tried to accuse me of stealing company property by accessing the calendar system. But the paper trail was completely bulletproof. Every single lie he told was contradicted by documented evidence with timestamps. His desperate attempts to deflect responsibility only made him look worse. The board launched a comprehensive internal investigation, interviewing every employee who'd worked with Clark over the past 3 years. The stories that emerged painted a disturbing picture of systematic harassment and intimidation. Sarah and Marcus agreed to testify as expert witnesses. Amber provided additional documentation from her brief tenure. Even some current employees came forward with complaints they'd been too scared to report. His behavior was an open secret. One manager told investigators during recorded interviews. Everyone knew he was problematic, but he delivered results, so leadership consistently looked the other way. James was absolutely ecstatic. This is becoming a case study in corporate liability. They can't settle this quietly anymore without admitting fault. The evidence was mounting faster than they could contain it. News of the investigation leaked to the industry press like wildfire. A prominent blogger who covered employment issues got wind of the story and published a scathing piece titled, "When Companies Enable Toxic Managers, a Case Study." LinkedIn lit up with passionate discussions about workplace harassment and retaliation. Former employees from other companies shared similar stories. The conversation was going viral across social media platforms. My phone rang constantly. Reporters, industry colleagues, even headhunters from competing firms. I declined most interviews, but the attention was building enormous pressure on my former company. Their stock price dropped 5% in 2 days. Major clients started asking pointed questions about their workplace culture. The board was in complete crisis mode, scrambling to control the narrative. Linda pulled me aside at work. "I'm incredibly proud of you for standing up to this. Whatever you need from us, you have our full support." Then I received a LinkedIn message that stopped me cold. It was from Clark's wife, Jennifer. "I need to talk to you urgently. It's important." My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. Jennifer and I met at a quiet coffee shop in Bellevue, away from prying eyes. She looked absolutely exhausted, older than I remembered from company holiday parties, with dark circles under her eyes. "I'm filing for divorce," she said without any preamble, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't pretend anymore that I don't know who he really is." She showed me text messages from Clark's phone, messages she'd discovered by accident while looking for photos. Screenshots of him mocking female employees, making crude comments about women's appearances, bragging about putting uppity women in their place. "He did this to me too," she said quietly, tears forming in her eyes. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the constant put-downs. I thought it was just our marriage falling apart. But seeing what he did to you, I realize it's who he is fundamentally. She handed me a small thumb drive with trembling hands. "These are personal communications that show his mindset. My lawyer says they're relevant to your case because they demonstrate a clear pattern of discriminatory behavior." I studied her face carefully. "Why are you doing this? This could destroy your divorce settlement." Because other women deserve better, and because I'm tired of being married to a bully. James was absolutely stunned by Jennifer's evidence. This takes your case from strong to absolutely bulletproof. Personal communications showing discriminatory intent, witness testimony from his spouse about behavioral patterns. They can't fight this. The company's legal team reached out within days, practically begging to settle. They offered everything I'd asked for: public apology, comprehensive policy changes, Clark's immediate termination, and a well-paid consulting role to help rebuild their culture. But I had one final, non-negotiable condition. I want Clark to deliver the apology himself. On record, in person, face-to-face. Their lawyer looked panicked. That's highly unusual. Terminated employees typically don't participate in settlement procedures. Then this is your first lesson in doing things differently, I replied calmly, maintaining steady eye contact. James smiled with satisfaction. My client's terms are completely non-negotiable. Mr. Davidson created this situation entirely. He can help resolve it properly. They agreed reluctantly after hours of debate. Clark would read a prepared statement acknowledging his misconduct and apologizing for his actions. It would be recorded and could be shared publicly. The final confrontation was set. Clark sat across from me in the same conference room where I'd been publicly humiliated 6 months earlier. He looked like he'd aged 5 years. His face was red, hands shaking slightly as he held the prepared statement. I deeply regret my actions regarding Maddie Davidson's employment termination, he read in a monotone voice, avoiding eye contact. My behavior was unprofessional, discriminatory, and violated company policy. Miss Davidson was an exemplary employee who deserved better treatment. He paused, jaw visibly clenched. I apologize for the harm my decisions caused to her career and personal life. I take full responsibility for my misconduct. When he finished, the room was completely silent. He looked up at me, expecting, what? Forgiveness? Reconciliation? Some kind of absolution? I leaned forward and spoke calmly. You don't regret what you did, Clark. You regret getting caught. His face turned even redder, but he said nothing. You can go now, I added. Your apology is accepted, but not forgiven. He stood up stiffly and walked out without another word. The settlement was finalized a week later. I received substantial financial compensation, but more importantly, the company implemented sweeping policy changes. Anonymous reporting systems, mandatory bias training for managers, external oversight of HR decisions, a zero-tolerance policy for retaliation. I took on the consulting role, working with Linda's blessing to help rebuild their workplace culture. My former coworkers welcomed me back like a returning hero. Jen was promoted to department head. Sarah and Marcus were offered positions with significant raises. Amber decided to stay and was enrolled in an accelerated leadership program. You changed everything, Jen told me during my first consulting session. People actually feel safe here now. I also received an unexpected email. We'd like to nominate you for the Pacific Northwest Women in Leadership Award. The nomination committee included several executives who'd heard about my case. My story was becoming an example of how to fight workplace injustice effectively.